Right, so you've either bought a starter set and want to make things much bigger and much better, or you've just jumped right in with the odd bit of rolling stock and a head full of dreams. What do you do next? Well, that's a very good question, and here are some others. 1. Is it going to be an end-to-end or continuous run layout? What era are you going to model in? Where will or even can it be placed? How realistic should it be? What gauge or scale are you going to go with? Where will it be based? To DCC or to not DCC? What materials are you going to use? How much will it cost and what can you afford? And finally, what's the first step? Well, you are going to join me on my journey as I build my dream layout from start to finish, although no layout is ever truly finished. I've looked through all the books, checked out all the layout plans, and I'm ready to take that first step. So please join me, and whether you're already laying ballast and sticking in trees, or still unsure on which room in the house to convert to a model railway haven, I hope you'll find this series of videos both useful and entertaining. Step 1. Inspiration. Some people call this stage research, but I think that sounds a bit boring. This isn't the Roman occupation of Numidia. This is model railways. It's trains. It's to be fun at all times, so I prefer to call this stage inspiration. This is perhaps the most difficult stage. The options are almost infinite. So let's narrow things down a bit. What's the number one limiting factor when building a model railway? Yep, that's right. It's space. Where are you going to build it? Where in your home, or even outside of your home, are you going to place the layout? Let's see how I overcame this. Here's a rough plan of my house, and all its rooms. So which rooms do we eliminate first? Well, obviously the kitchen is a no. As cool as it would be to have an N-gauge railway transporting ingredients around the worktops, I think that fat spit from the wok might interfere with the electrical conductivity of the track, so the kitchen is a big no. The dining room is also a no. The table is just so huge and the other furniture takes up so much space, not to mention there being a piano in there, that it would be difficult to build any sort of model railway in that room, so the dining room is also a no. The living room is also a no. The sofas, TV and fireplace take up too much space, not to mention there's about a gazillion games consoles in there. So even though you could kind of build something fancy like a coffee table layout, it's not really the place for a layout. The front room is about to be converted into an office, so that's a no-go area at the moment. The front garage is really cold, and at the moment access has to be via lifting the front garage door from outside, so that's definitely not ideal. In the hall there's barely room to swing a cat, let alone run a Helgian lion, so that's definitely a no. There's already a layout in the conservatory, the test one, the famous one that's used for all the reviews. The shed isn't weatherproof, and it's only really big enough to act as a base of operations for a garden railway, which I'm not doing at the moment. The back garage is a great size, but it would need weatherproofing and decluttering, which is a big job, so it's not where I want to build my dream layout. Going right to the top of the house, the attic is a fantastic space. It's absolutely huge, but it can only be accessed by a ladder, which some of my family members would find it difficult to negotiate. And I want to show the layout off. I want lots of people to come around and see it, so putting it in the attic isn't really ideal. The master bedroom is where I sleep, so again, it's a good size, but it's not ideal to build a layout. Although we'll come back to that later, because I think there might be something we can do with that. The office is about to be turned back into a bedroom. Plus, it's currently the home of the N-gauge layout, so the office is a no-go. The red room is the smallest bedroom, ideal for a baby or child, and without going into too much detail at this stage, it's going to be kept as a child's bedroom. This brings us on to the last remaining room, which is the green room. This is the second largest bedroom in the house, and currently not used for anything other than storing PlayStation magazines, old computers, and about 1 million DVDs. As this house has 3 other good-sized bedrooms, not to mention plenty of space downstairs, this room is perfect for a model railway. The room is easy to get to, it's weatherproof, it's warm thanks to central heating, and what's more, as it's a north-facing room, there's no direct sunlight, which means no powerful rays to bleach the colour from my models or interfere with infrared signals from dynamic controllers, for instance. Now, I know I'm quite fortunate in that I have a large room that I can dedicate to the model railway, to my dream layout. But remember, it's possible to build an end-to-end layout in as little space as a windowsill. So the first thing to do is to find out where you can build a layout and go from there. Once you have an idea about how much space you have to work with, you can start to think about what to put in it. This is where books and magazines come in. Whoa, too many. That's far too many. There's just a few very important ones we need for now. That's better. And here they are. Now I've split them into 3 different groups. The first group are planning books. They're full of guides, they're full of layouts, and you're going to find them pretty much, well, essential, to be honest. The second load are inspirational books. So here's a book on merry-go-round surfaces, which are coal sector things used in the 1980s, and then the locomotives that ran them, such as the famous Class 58. These are unique to me. You'll have ones that are unique to you. If you're building a layout in the northeast, you might have something to do with the LNER. Maybe you're building a GWR station in the Welsh countryside. Whatever you're doing, you're going to have books specific to what you're interested in. The final group are basically useful magazines and pamphlets and bookazines and pullouts and little leaflets and articles and lots of random stuff that help you with all of the tricky bits, like the assembling of baseboards, the wiring of signals and stuff like that. Once you've got these 3 distinct groups, you can decide what layout you're going to build. You can decide how you're going to build it. We've already discussed space, so that's no longer an issue. Let's have a look at those layout books first. These are what most people will be interested in. These 2 are by Pico, and they're probably 2 of the most famous and most heavily used and most reliable set track plan books that you can use. The others are available, but certainly these 2 are amongst the most popular and the most famous. This is just simply an N-gauge version of the 001 over here. Most of the layouts are even identical, so we're going to put it to one side because I'm focusing on 00. So basically, as we start to go through this, you'll see that it discusses the different types of track, but don't worry about that too much for now. It discusses the different types of platforms, level crossings, and then it even discusses where to site your layouts. Look, there's a guy there who's got one in his office, there's someone who's got one in an attic, there's someone who's got a fold-up one in a garage, and then there's a massive one there filling an entire room. There's even one that folds out of a cupboard, like a wardrobe type thing. But again, don't worry about any of that just yet. You need to look at the layouts themselves. So if we fast forward through all the electrics, all the fiddly stuff, which just isn't important at the moment, you get to layout number 1. It couldn't get much simpler, could it? I mean, just look at that. There you have a layout for layout number 1. I can't show you too much, otherwise I'll get done by them. But basically, as you go through this book, you'll see that the layouts get more and more complicated. Now, you don't have to build any of these, okay? You don't have to. They're just inspiration. They're ideas. You can even take one of these and then totally customize it and modify it to make it your own. So for example, where this has an entire loop at the top end and an entire loop at the bottom end, you could extend it and make it even longer, or you could cut out the middle section altogether. You can do whatever you want. Don't use these as, you know, set in stone, chiseled in concrete plan books. You can customize them, modify them. However, some of them, especially in the N-Gage one, are really useful because they're so small, like the windowsill type ones. I mean, look at that. You really could fit that like in the corner of a bedroom. It's tiny. So I definitely recommend having these. Even if you don't actually build one of these layouts, they'll act as inspiration. They'll give you ideas. They'll get all the cogs in your head going so that you can think of what to do. Another book I recommend is the one by Hornby. Now, there's several versions of this. I think this is the second edition. Yes, it is. But this is really useful as well, because whereas the other one kind of skims over how to build things, this goes into it in a bit more detail. And I've marked off some certain pages here with little tags. So for example, here we can see the assemble of baseboards, how to put the frames together, how to get the tracks to line up. And then moving on, gosh, these are so fiddly, aren't they? There we go. Yeah. So again, you can see the framework of the baseboards being put together, and how to do the edges and stuff like that. And then this third one down here, if we get to this, again, wiring. It's essential. Once all your trackers in place, you're going to need to make sure that it's all powered. You're going to need to make sure that the point motors are fitted. You're probably going to have to drill holes in the baseboard underneath. It's really, really useful. This book goes through and covers pretty much everything there is to do with building a layout. So what have we got here? Power connectors. Yeah, so here we go. I mean, this is quite messy, but it's looking at running cabling underneath your baseboards so that you can power each individual section. You're going to have cabling for track, you're going to have cabling for lights, cabling for signals, multiple runs of cable basically, and this book covers it all. It's also really nicely written. It flows really well. It talks about different controllers. Obviously there's a slight bias towards Hornby products, but you know, you can, if you're not happy with any of the Hornby controllers, you can just swap them out for a Gauge Master or Lens one. It's up to you. It's all pretty much compatible, so you don't need to worry about it. It's just a really useful book to have. It's really nicely written, it flows well, and you can read the whole thing in a day or two. So I definitely recommend getting hold of that, and I definitely recommend getting some of these. Just sit down, take your time, relax, flick through them, see what ideas they've got, make down some notes. Think about what layouts you want to build. Do you want to build a GWR terminus? Do you want to recreate your childhood station? Do you want to build something much bigger, like a coal mine? Well, I do. Which is why I got these two books. I bought these specifically for my dream layout. As you'll have just seen, my first ever train set featured a Class 58. It was the Midnight Freight. It just so happened to feature a Class 58. It was the Class 66 of its day, so it's as simple as that. But the Class 58s were employed primarily for hauling coal, as you can see there. They did do other duties as well, not very often, but they were primarily for hauling coal. And it's true they didn't do an exceptional job of it because they suffered from a lot of wheel slip. But they were still iconic. They were famous for what they were intended to do, which was coal haulage, and you could see them up and down the country hauling coal trains everywhere. It was always my dream to basically build a massive merry-go-round style layout with a whole army of Class 58s hauling umpteen, you know, like we're talking 40, 50, 60, maybe even 100 hoppers in total going around the layout at once, all full of coal. Well, half of them full of coal, half of them empty. So I got a book on the Class 58, and then I marked off all these different pages which showed great I mean, just look at that. There you can see a HST is broken down, so a Class 58 is being used to rescue it. but as you go on to other pages, you'll see different stuff. Again, not the Class 58, they're derailed and come off one of the, oh gosh, what are those, are they called catch points? I can't remember. So one of them's come off there and derailed. Oh look, yeah, quite bad damage. But it was a really good book. Basically, it taught me everything I needed to know about the Class 58, ready for my layout. But this one was even more important. This book is specifically for merry-go-round operations, so this is all about coal sector, which is what the black diamonds are. It's my favourite sector. It's part of the rail freight logos that were from the 80s and 90s. They're defunct now, they're not used, because it's all privatised. But when it was still nationalised and operated by British Rail, their freight division, Rail Freight, split all the freight up into different sections. So we had petroleum, metals, coal, and various other things. Coal was my favourite. Coal is what we're focusing on now. This book talks about the merry-go-round operations. So basically, how armies of these Class 58s, as well as Class 47s, Class 56s, and various others, including Class 20s, would travel continuously sometimes, ferrying coal from the coal mines and the coal plants to the power plants. And this book proved essential for helping me plan my layout. It talks about how the operations worked, what rolling stock was used. It talks about all the different types of hoppers as they came and went. It even talks about all the design of the track, the different layouts that they would have at the various coaling plants and power stations. So there we go, you can see some of that there. And then moving on, again, different track designs and track layouts depending on the power station. And then moving on again, look at this. I mean, this is just typical of the kind of thing I'm on about. Basically, the Class 58 with its rake of hoppers would come in off the main line, go around a return loop, or maybe go that way. Yeah, in fact the arrows do show it going that way. So they would come in, they would go around here. This is where they deposit the coal really slowly before moving off round, going back on itself, joining the main line again, and shooting off to go get some more. So I knew that I basically had to build design elements of this into my layout if I was going to make it realistic. You'll do the same thing. Even if you're not building a merry-go-round layout for coal trains, you could be building a GWR terminus, you could be building a cattle loading facility of the LNER. Whatever you're building, books like this really, really help. So where do you get these books? You can get them from places on the internet, but I recommend going to train shows, going to model railway shops. You'll find lots of them there. You can even go to the library and find the books there too. And finally, excuse me, you can never have enough of these. These are really, really useful as well. They start off with really, really basic ones by Hornby like this, which again go over baseboard construction, how to wire it up, how to make sure that you reverse the polarities when doing things like that. Useful things to bear in mind. But then they go into more complicated things. So this is a supplement that came with an issue of Hornby magazine a while ago, and it's called Valley Colliery. So look, it even talks about baseboard construction, and it focuses on building a ramp using different materials to build it, such as foam or polystyrene. But the ultimate goal of this supplement is to create a coal layout. Look at that. So you've got the mine shaft there, you've got various tracks, you've got a passenger train running alongside a coal one. It's just brilliant. Even if you don't build it, I mean, look at that, it's really small, you've got to admit, and I'm not going to build something that small. But even if you don't build it, you can take inspiration from it. Look at the tunnels, look at the buildings, look at the way they've laid the track out. You can incorporate elements of that into your plan, into your layout. This initial stage is all about gathering information, gathering ideas, being inspired. It's as simple as that. And it could be as simple as, you know, going on a train journey to Shrewsbury one day and just watching the trains and looking at the track and watching all the activity from the station side as you go. record it, take photos, make notes. You'll see me do that in the next part. This is a really, really useful one. Again, I think it came with Hornby magazine. Maybe it came with Model Railway magazine. No, it did. It came with Hornby magazine. This talks all about electrics. So it talks about wiring it all up, all the different buses to run underneath your layout, controllers to fit, how you can have repeaters to keep the signal strength going for further, because if you've got lots of trains and a big layout, you're going to need lots of electricity. A really, really useful book. Well, supplement. It's not really a book, it's not a magazine, is it? It's just really thin. And then look at this one, part 1, building a layout with construction essentials. Again, with Hornby magazine, but you get them in other magazines as well. You get them in Model Rail, Railway Modeler. They come out really often as well. All you got to do is start buying one of the magazines you like, and then just keep buying it again and again, and eventually you'll see them. So here they're talking about a layout called Bolsover and 7-lane pit. And I'm sure they won't mind me showing you this because it's really old now as well. But look, again, baseboard construction. Just how many examples of baseboard construction have we seen now? You know, there's different ways of building it, but they're all pretty much the same. They all consist of a frame with the boards resting along the top, and it's not that hard to do. You'll see it get done. Me and my dad did it 25 years ago, and you're about to see it get done again. Here we go, the art of 3D planning. So here this person's not put any track down, they've just used a big black marker to put down roughly where they want the tracks to go. A really, really useful feature. And there you can see they've actually started to put little bits of track down to decide where they want the points and what radius of points they're going to be. If you haven't actually got them, you could use my paper track method. That's really inexpensive because you may have one of these points. So just draw it once, cut out the paper, make as many copies as you want, and then lay them all out. A really inexpensive way of track design, basically. And then look at that. Look how it starts to build up into something spectacular. Yes, I have noticed that the photo is a little bit out of sync there, but don't worry about that. Again, look at all this. Laying the track. Exactly how to do it, how to cut it, how to make it neat, the cork underlay that they use, how to make joins between the baseboards. There's nothing that they don't miss. It's so complete. It's fantastic. Really, really useful. And there was a part 2 as well. There we go. Again, developing the scenery, so this goes even further. They talk about sticking trees down, ballasting your track, adding signals. Really, really useful supplements. I recommend you collect them. So start buying now. And then here's one on digital command control, DCC, what it is, how to use it. The layout I'm building is actually going to be hybrid, so that you can switch between either. But some people might want to go entirely DCC, and some people might want to stay entirely DC. It's up to you. Do whatever you want. Wow, look at that. See, that's the lens controller. It's a really, really nice DCC controller, but I don't like it because it looks too much like a calculator to me. I prefer ones like this, or maybe the Gauge Master. That's a nice one, but unfortunately it relies on infrared signals, so it's not that reliable. So there we have it. An army of supplements that are really, really useful, essential, to be honest. Books that are going to be specific to your particular layout, such as the Class 58 one and the merry-go-round one for me. And then the totally essential, invaluable model railway guides by Hornby and the set track plan book guides by Pico. Really, really useful. Dead easy to get hold of. Just go on Amazon or go into almost any model railway shop. You can get hold of these. They're all about 10 quid or less than 10 quid. How much is this Hornby one? Let's have a look. Okay, so this one's $14.99, but I'm sure you can probably find it for less than that. And these well, they're definitely not $14.99. No, I can't find a price anywhere on this, but it's about 6 quid, maybe 6 or 8 quid. It's not much. It's money well spent, trust me. And I even recommend buying 2 copies. I have 2 copies. I have a neat one, like this, that I keep in pristine condition. And then I have a really messy one as well. And I've actually written on it messy. And that's the one that I take into the layout room. That's the one I get covered in glue and paint and stuff. It doesn't matter because it's just my messy copy. So yeah, definitely get those, get that, get some books, go and get some inspiration, go get some ideas, and start buying one of your favourite magazines, or many of them, and collecting these things, because they are very useful, okay? They go into detail that these books just can't go into. So get them, and get them. Once you've done that, you're ready for the next stage, which is to actually design the layout.